El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv. Andrew J. Polk. Lot to delve into today. Yeah, there's a echo of elections past and, of course, shades of those to come coming in today as a certification of the results, the outcomes of the propositions, among other things. And again, those runoffs for the, primarily for the school districts coming up. But also, and I'll just mention probably a couple dozen times about the voting turnout and how I was correct, even if I didn't want to be, on the actual turnout. Also, more analysis of how the end of Title 42 is playing out, why it both met and didn't meet expectations in some way. Speaking with a former Border Patrol chief in the nearby region, as we have Ida Beza-Gardner joining us over on the social media, our news partners there, delving into that. And also, not that we usually chase all individual incidents, crimes, deaths, but one is standing out, and particularly as it relates to bigger questions that have been coming up in previous weeks, months, better part of years. When it comes to staffing, we all heard some of the major bonuses and recruitment going on for the city of El Paso, and could that have had an impact on that tragedy at a city water park over the weekend? So delving into that, as well as some other links to national stuff, including the UTEP and EPCC on the clock to spend millions in COVID relief money. That from El Paso matters, as well as getting a lot of deadlines coming up. And yeah, that also certainly relates to the debt ceiling and that whole debate issue. Will they, won't they? A lot of it. And also just more of the deadlines coming up when it comes to Texas and the closer to the end of session, approximately 2 weeks out at this point. So we got a lot of probably angst happening in a lot of elected officials' laps at this point, as all the stuff that needs to be done has not quite been done yet. And an actual legitimate question coming in. Eric McNabb asking, how would you have any of the local candidates that are going to a runoff for school board on your show, and how should they reach out for you for that? We absolutely would have. We, much to my chagrin, did not pay nearly enough attention to that aspect of this recent election, but you have to call our shots sometimes with the just so deep bench that we have in order to develop these things. But yeah, I'd be happy to speak with them, and was planning probably in the next week, once we actually have that election set, all of those things, once it starts popping up over on the epcountyvotes.com, among other things, to have them on. So easiest way for those candidates to get a hold of me will be reaching out, but they want to go ahead and get on the schedule, get on early. Andrew Polk at iHeartMedia.com would be the best way for them to do so. Just my email, and we'll be happy to talk with them further, because there are more than a couple of debates. This isn't just a pass through, I would have to say. There are some substantive things on this ballot. And of course, given how much school boards, education, school issues have come up, I would think that there needs to be more emphasis on this as well. I'm not going to hold my breath about us getting anywhere near the level of voter turnout that we've had recently, but, I'd be happy to be wrong on that one. So, yeah, if you actually want to hear about that, I'd be happy to have it on. Also looking at, as I've kind of mentioned at the end of previous shows, getting more into the session of the Texas legislature, but also, of course, that ever so slightly contentious possibility of there being an extended session, an additional special session, particularly if a couple of priorities don't get through. So we'll be delving into a lot of this as much as we can in this show here. There's a lot of people chiming in over on our social media as well, including Jennifer Favor Howell, Ed Clore, Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, James Holt, Richard Janisic, Ida Beza-Gardner, and Monica Cervantes. Do appreciate that. So let's delve straight into, as I fight with one of our machines here, right into what has been going on, more of the analysis for the end of Title 42. There's been more enforcement actions going on, including, as reported by our news partners at KFOX 14 a little bit earlier this afternoon, another stash house found on the west side, 21 inside of this, shared by the El Paso Sector Border Patrol Chief Anthony Good on Twitter on Tuesday. He's been doing a pretty good job of putting out all of these. And an interesting update that actually comes out of this, beyond just as an enforcement action, that all of these were processed Title 8 or voluntarily returned to Mexico, is what was being said. And again, not a great situation. The picture shows the individuals on a concrete floor, a piece of cardboard or two between them to offer some cushioning. And yeah, just I'm not surprised that this does continue on and very likely will, even as we see Title 42 can break down its aftermath, including some interesting analysis coming from our news partners at KFOX 14, speaking with Victor Manjarres, former Tucson Border Patrol chief, now works as an adjunct instructor in the Department of Criminal Justice at UTEP, saying that some were expecting the expiration of Title 42 to ultimately came before the policy went away. Saying that I was hearing about an increase when Title 42 went in, and I expected the opposite to happen because, yeah, that was previous incidents in our areas. Anytime Title 42 has, and the possibility of the ending of it had come up prior to this, that had pretty much been the circumstance of it being either individuals, in some cases rushing, but attempting to cross en masse, and all of the resources that were being marshaled for this part of it. So we also have Willie Jenkins saying hello, Robbie Flores, I think with one of those bit emojis that don't quite show up on our screen here, but also Eric Von Holstein Rathlow. We're saying good afternoon and a sunny one to all Talk El Paso folks. Appreciate you all tuning in and chiming in. So the fact that Title 8, which of course is the processing that is going to be happening now, I mean, it can be expedited, but it's nowhere near what Title 42 was, because I still hesitate to call that policy. It was a one-line executable of, if entering country illegally, remove immediately, which I know some were saying that they want to see that it continue on, but of course, the legal underpinning of it with the pandemic-era restrictions expired, so that's gone. But again, numbers, of course, have not evaporated by any means, but there has been at the very least, a significant enough change in the numbers. Again, still referring to the El Paso, Texas.gov/migrant-crisis, as I often do, showing that there have been more hotels in operation. A little bit more of an update from over the weekend, since we checked on these yesterday. It looks like that for the hotels that are in operation here in El Paso, there was a high water mark of this time frame, about 176 in 2 different hotels, down currently, well, as of yesterday anyway, to about 26. And that in the shelters, there was on the 11th, so let me do my math here, Thursday, there were about 55, then following day 18, and the following day 68, and then 52. So there have been a number of those. I still haven't, in any of the ways I've been seeing it or been able to see it anyway. At the Moorhead School, no real operations that I get the sense of. I have not been inside it or done like a concerted view of it, but just driving by, you get a pretty clear view of the front door, and even going by some of the side streets, it doesn't seem like much, if anything at all, is happening there. So the fact that it's all at the Bassett shelter makes a level of sense, and transportations are also continuing on apace. So there's still a lot of that response that is being marshaled in our area. Eric Von Holstein Rathlow asking, seeing video of people flooding over the Santa Fe Bridge. Not recently. There was, of course, the some of the previous attempts in the, I guess best way to put it, interim of the whole Title 42 ending situation. I think that happened back in March. So if it's a new one, that one hasn't come across my feed or notice yet. But yeah, not a outside the realm of possibility, I guess I would say, as there is still, the estimates as we're going into this is that there were tens of thousands, literally, even just in Ciudad Juarez attempting to cross. And even if there are changing conceptions and apparently a message well received on the idea of don't come because of the, at the very least, halving of numbers, even if we still, I'm kind of waiting for another shoe to drop. It feels like a little bit of, okay, expectations were thwarted. That's fine. I'm willing to be surprised in ways that are important when it comes to this immigration and border security enforcement. But it wasn't a solution. There was not a, yes, we have put this situation to bed, as near as I can tell. So, yeah. And Don Brazelton with a, let's call it cynical analysis of it, saying Mexican drug cartels want smuggling money to continue. No disagreement there on my part, but he continues on to say they don't want a huge expansion of illegal numbers to take place. Federal government would be required to react. I don't know if there, as much as there obviously is some sophistication within the cartels. You don't just run an operation of any kind of reasonable size and scope on the tens of thousands that we have been seeing, of course, of other things and of doing smuggling. And even outside of this incident, what are we at, like 200,000 across the entire southern border so far, or at the very least 100,000 approaching 200,000, some of the most recent numbers I've seen when it comes to crossings, and or somewhere in between the breakdown between crossings and or what's the correct phrase to use for that there? Interceptions, encounters. That's the right one for that. So it's definitely still continuing on, and we've still seen so far this week, again, from that migrant situational awareness dashboard, about 521 releases so far, even if also the in-custody 7-day rolling average does continue at its very least noted as of now for its high water mark as of set with even in the end of last year. It's just interesting that, again, their news partners about the expectations or the thwarting thereof, and what Manhattan, again, former Border Patrol Sector Chief in the more Tucson area, says that to our news partners at KFOX 14, the reason for the drop in the number of migrants on the streets, local shelters, could be due to many being transferred to other sectors. And of course, there was a lot of focus in the days immediately leading up to the end of Title 42. The flyers being distributed and definitely increased law enforcement presence in downtown. I can say that much for myself. When there was, particularly around the Sacred Heart Church, there were, some of those camping canopies, not tents, but, the shade shelters that were set up, and quite a lot of law enforcement, be it a mix between El Paso Police, DPS, and other, and mildly assuming federal service as well in that area. At the very least, some of those flyer handouts were reportedly done by CBP, DHS agencies in general. So the fact that we haven't seen right now, there's other expectations, among other things, including Fernando Garcia with the Border Network for Human Rights saying, quote, "Things appear to be calm right now, but they are not. They are brewing." And very much like similar those same numbers that I'm talking about, as we also have Willie Jenkins asking to pray for safety, security, and sovereignty in our country in the Lord's name, but also Crazy Texan saying, also chiming in over on YouTube, hello to you as well. And well, what Manjarres has to say is that I do expect an increase in the near future because we still have about 30 to 35,000 individuals in Juarez waiting to cross. So as much as I really hadn't seen updated numbers on this, there were estimations to begin anyway, but it's still in line with that, and that still is a big question mark as to what will come next or what will come after this. And Manhattan, one last quote we'll pull from him saying, "If it becomes clear that they are unable to handle higher loads at Title 8, then we will see this all over again. We will see large numbers." So Title 8 certainly does have removal and expedited removal processes, nowhere near the order of what it is for Title 42, or was for Title 42, I should say. And Maria Coleman saying, "I saw the video of about 6,000 male migrants in El Paso Border Patrol facility or border facility. The border facility maximum was 1,000, but they are off the streets and not visible. There certainly has been a lot of moving to processing. That very much was the focus. We saw that a line down around the downtown, or near enough to the border, near downtown, South Central in general, processing the line to come into it after the message was put out. If you have not been processed, either surrender or you are going to be arrested, detained, etc. So there's more to come there. And yeah, those about 6,000 is more or less accurate for what I have seen so far, and including there's been recent reportings on this. El Paso Matters, with their article title out, I believe either late last week or early this week, that Border Patrol detention in El Paso rise sharply with the end of Title 42, noting about 6,200 migrants were in the Border Patrol custody in Friday in the El Paso sector. And so that is pretty well in line, even if, don't know if they were all in one facility, but those are some of the, again, area sector-wide numbers, which are been primarily focused on El Paso as the major part of the border we're in. So that's some of the details on what we're looking at in this area, in this sector. And again, those expectations that we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on, and keeping an eye on those numbers and what may or may not come next. We're definitely into cloudy crystal ball territory. So your guess is as good as mine, but do have certain expectations that we'll keep delving into and, of course, talking about even as we get further into the days, weeks, and months after this end of Title 42. Only time will tell. Let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, some more things that have been going on outside of border security and immigration. Yes, it's always going to be, the very least, close of mind, if not a full topic that we address every day. I don't see that ending anytime soon, given the situations that we are dealing with and facing in this region. But, of course, there are some other things going on, including, has part of the city's efforts towards hiring, or the push or lack of response to it, been part of the situation? Those are some of the questions being asked after there was a increasingly high-profile tragedy and now death over the weekend at one of the city's water parks. Again, not something we would usually focus on, one specific incident, but as it relates to some of the bigger ones, we'll talk about that here in just a minute. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot more to get to, a lot more we'll delve into, and a lot more we'll talk about, including keep those comments coming, and we'll open those phone lines a little bit later. Stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Police and medical on the scene of a crash westbound Montwood at Kleinfeld. Slow traffic on eastbound Montana, McRae out to Desert Meadows, 11-minute delays. 10-minute delays northbound Zaragoza from the loop up to Montana. And Global Reach is slow. Southbound Global Reach is stop and go with traffic about 12-minute delays at the spur down to Montana Avenue. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. At Lowe's, they're always bringing pros more ways to save. Right now, get a Flex 24-volt half-inch drill and driver kit for only $99. What's $179? You save $80. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Valid 3/20 to 7/20 while supplies last. U.S. only.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. I have a huge announcement. Thank you for making us #1 in total sales this year. To stay #1, we're offering the biggest savings ever. Hey, Jojo, tell everyone about our exciting offers.
You got it, boss man. Get huge savings on the biggest selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles in El Paso and surrounding areas at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Right now, get 10% off MSRP on all 2023 Ram 1500 Laramie trucks in stock. Get $5,500 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport. Get super low 2.9% APR for 72 months or $5,250 cash allowance on 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star trucks. Plus, don't worry about your trade or credit. Our aggressive lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. It's the season of huge savings at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive, or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 2.9% APR, 1515 per thousand finance. All select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
I'm Scott Trout, attorney and CEO of the domestic litigation firm Cordell & Cordell. We help men deal with the life changes triggered by divorce, such as child custody and property division, among many others. But life changes also occur after divorce. These changes can make parts of your existing court order irrelevant. If you feel a modification to your court orders might be necessary, talk to us at Cordell & Cordell. We're a partner men can count on.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Dallas-Fort Worth area attorneys. Offices in Dallas, Fort Worth, and St. Louis. CordellCordell.com.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. I mean, there's still a lot of developments going on with the border issues, including, we kind of mentioned it yesterday, a little bit more detail, but not a whole lot out today, that the Pentagon specifically saying they're sending about 950 troopers arriving mostly to El Paso, but in the border in general, by the end of the month. So we're still seeing that ramp up, which again fits expectations, or at the very least, maybe not expectations, because I really don't know what to expect at this point. Insert the whole opening the bag, I don't know what I expected GIF at here, but there's still just kind of this lingering, okay, what happens now, that I think a lot of people are also feeling. So that's one aspect of it, even if there is possibly more to come. And one comment that came in earlier, Eric von Holstein Rathlow saying, I heard DeSantis is sending Florida National Guard to Texas to help. Yeah, he's specifically sending 1,100 law enforcement agents and National Guard members, according to our national news partners. Move in response to a letter sent by Texas Governor Greg Abbott to all 50 states requesting, quote, support in the ongoing border crisis. The governor, as often is the case, posting Abbott, that is, posting that over on Twitter if you want to see that for yourself. Said a little bit earlier today, and I'm not surprised that that's part of it, saying, quote, among other things. This is directly from his letter. The flood of illegal border activity invited by the Biden administration flows directly across the southern border into Texas communities, but this crisis does not stop in our state. In the federal government's absence, we as governors must band together to combat President Biden's ongoing border crisis and ensure the safety and security that all Americans deserve. The Emergency Management Assistance Compact empowers the states to provide assistance to one another in times of disaster or emergency, both of which accurately describe the current border crisis. Goes on, is also noted in the notes about the letter, which gets a little bit meta, I know, but saying that highlights the Texas taxpayer dollars the state of Texas has already allocated for border security, noting specifically has spent more than $4.5 billion since 2021 on critical border security operations and potentially looking to fund an additional $4.6 billion for the next 2 years. So not quite the segue into the Texas legislature and the still pending very important things going on there, but it's close enough. Maybe we'll take that opportunity. A couple other comments coming in, including Crazy Texan referring to a video they saw on YouTube where filming downtown, migrants getting hostile towards the two guys filming them. Haven't seen the one exactly you're talking about, but I wouldn't be surprised if such a circumstance were to be happening. I mean, there's good ways of doing citizen journalism, and then there's bad ways. Not having seen the video, all I know is that, and also people can have a response to having a camera pointed at around them, particularly if there's delicate situations going on. So, yeah. As we also have Matt Olson with the extended yo. I think I did it justice there. But anyways, if you want to keep commenting over there, keep those up as we will keep taking them throughout the show, and phone lines a little bit later as we usually do. But I want to delve into a very local issue here for just a minute. Again, we don't usually delve into the individual crimes, incidents, tragedies that happen, but this one connects a bit larger. Our news partners over at KFOX 14 speaking with specifically the mother of a 3-year-old who died of injuries after, I mean, it's being referred to as a drowning, though just to be clear, was found unresponsive and pronounced later dead in the hospital. El Paso Waterpark says specifically, according to the headline title there, it says lifeguards not properly trained. And specifically, that 3-year-old Anthony Leo Malave, and Jessica Weaver is the mother of the 3-year-old who was, again, found unresponsive on Saturday and died at the hospital Sunday morning. The mother speaking to our news partners at KFOX 14 saying, quote, the city had the soft opening to get their operations going, but it cost my son's life because they weren't ready. They weren't ready for a drowning. They weren't ready for the response. And said specifically EMS was called at 5:09 p.m. and arrived at the scene at 5:14, but that the response of the park was, quote, a train wreck. Going on to say, quote, they weren't ready to switch out equipment if one wasn't working properly for this child. They didn't know hands-on, mouth-to-mouth CPR. They didn't even say, hey, this isn't working, let's do this. It was like, let's keep going with what we have and see the outcome. Now, not a good situation any way you slice it. A child dying at a city facility, or really any facility, but it does put into a little bit of highlight the fact that there was questions earlier this year about staffing. I mean, you may recall that there was, let's call it within, you give it about 6 months or so, the push and the signing bonus on for those willing to come and work, specifically lifeguards. I believe we did an interview or two on that. I'll have to see if I can maybe dredge that up, if not get more response on this. So the idea of there not being enough staff and therefore the potential rushing of it, I would not be too surprised if this is not potentially, I mean, we're days out of this at this point, so this may be a little too early to call for, but on the larger picture, which I guess we usually end up focusing on, as much as this family's tragedy is still being felt and will probably never be healed, just because that's the kind of way that these things go, I wouldn't be surprised, or in fact would be thinking it probably should result in investigations into the safety and security, if only to make it so that people would have some faith in this. I mean, sure, this is one incident out of how many there weren't going on. And I mean, the things that go right usually don't get reported on. I'm fully aware of that. But still, I can imagine that this will have an impact on a lot of people saying, hey, what's going on there? And without there being enough of a response, even beyond, again, whatever the specific circumstances are, probably needs to be mounted by the city, would fully call for that. As much as there are other responses going on, I actually, and we might delve into this in future episodes, was provided a copy of the police report when it comes to those city gas cards, among other things. So there's a lot to probably be further delved into in some of the other, and this is an affectionate term, the way I use it, ankle biters in and around city and even county government, talking about other, maybe not strictly technically impropriety, but describing it as questionable spending coming from current and or previous city reps, at least one previous one in mind that we'll be looking a little bit further into. Let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we got more comments that have come in as well, and certainly also a lot more on the Texas legislature couple weeks out of the first deadline, because if a couple of critical things, 7 of them specifically, over the total course of this session, when it comes to the governor's emergency items, don't happen, there are absolutely been put forth by the governor that he's going to call for special sessions, and some are just like do or die. There is no, well, we didn't quite get to it, like the budget, which, no, in answer to my question, has not been settled yet, and whatever tax relief may end up looking like. So we'll talk more about that and a whole lot more after this. You're, of course, tuned in to Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Phone calls, just a bit, but also a lot of the comments coming in. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso after this break on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. The mother of a 3-year-old who drowned at an El Paso City water park over the weekend is criticizing the city. KFOX 14 spoke to Jessica Weaver, the mother of the 3-year-old boy. The child was found unresponsive in the pool at Camp Cohen on Saturday and then died at a local hospital on Sunday. Jessica Weaver, his mother, says the city of El Paso needs to be better prepared at its water parks to avoid this kind of tragedy from happening to other families. Meantime, police continue to investigate the drowning. City of El Paso Representative Joe Molinad has completed his assigned training after an investigation into a complaint filed by a city employee found that Molinad violated the city's sexual harassment prevention policy. Molinad finished the harassment prevention training on Wednesday. El Paso Mayor Oscar Leeser had written Molinad a letter of admonition in March, stating that Molinad made a female city employee feel uncomfortable at a holiday luncheon. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
I-10 westbound at the Loop in the Lower Valley, a heavy construction vehicle stalled and is blocking the left interchange ramp. An accident reported Dyer northbound in Macomb. Slow traffic eastbound Montana Avenue, McRae out to Zaragoza, 11-minute delays. And stop traffic on Global Reach southbound between the spur approaching Montana Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Temperatures for tonight still on the mild side as we're still seeing some muggy conditions out there. We're looking at lows 50s to lower 60s, so a mild start for your Wednesday morning. 10% chance of an isolated storm, a little hotter for tomorrow, around 88 degrees. As we look to our Thursday, partly cloudy, breezy, 10% chance of a storm, hotter again on Thursday with a high around 90. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Now during Staples Small Business Deal Days, when rewards members spend $100 or more, they get $20 back in rewards, plus another $10 back with a Staples Connect app. Rewards offer ends May 27th. Limit 1, redeemable in-store only. Save big for your business at Staples.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Ricardo, quote, "This is one of the greatest inventions ever. I know this may sound like I'm exaggerating, but this sucker is amazing. The first time I did it, I couldn't believe what came out of my sinuses. I could breathe with ease. My wife just bought one too. Thank you for this product," unquote. He's one of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
Is foot pain making your life miserable? The Good Feet store wants to help. We invite you to visit our store at Airway Boulevard at I-10 for a free fitting and test walk and learn more about how the Good Feet store can help you find relief. The Good Feet store.
We'll have the story of the time the Man in Steel, Superman, battled the Ku Klux Klan. Be sure to listen to this week's edition of Our American Stories on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by Our American Stories.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. Phone lines here in just a bit, as we normally do, but in the meantime, a lot more comments coming in, and including delving a little bit further into one of the previous ones that, if I'm finding it correctly here, because I want to attribute, on Eric Van Holstein Rathler bringing up the idea of Florida National Guard. That is a part of the contingent. The specific breakdown, DeSantis sending over 800 members of the Florida National Guard, 200 State Department of Law Enforcement agents, not an agency I'm perfectly familiar with. I've barely been to Disney World, never really paid much attention to the different state departments in Florida, but they are also sending just over 100 state highway patrol troopers. So that's why they're saying both troops and law enforcement agents. So a little bit more detail on that one there. But on some of the more, particularly on the discussion last segment, on there being the response so far at the city pools, John Browson saying the city and county are lucky to find young people that want to work at lifeguards, let alone be trained properly. Parents need to take responsibility for their children around the water. Not saying I disagree with you there, but I will also more agree with what you said later on. I feel a major lawsuit against the city coming. I mean, there's always the tropes of, someone that doesn't pay attention, what's going on. I mean, it's been the subject of way too many sitcoms, I feel like, but don't know all the details. And again, more being looked into in this, but we'll certainly agree also with Eric Van Holstein Rathler on that. That poor family can't even fathom the pain of losing a child. I pray they find comfort. Absolutely. So that's some of the conversation on there. But then also Texas, the state of Texas, and the many things still in progress as we are getting towards the end of this regular session. Among other things, and some things that I am more in favor of, would be that, as noted by Texas Tribune here, their article title out as of late yesterday and updated today, Texas House approves bills to spend up to $1 billion to buy more state park land. I have often had a lot of good cherished memories in Texas state parks, even just in our local area. And so the idea of there being more of that, there was a notable example of a Texas state park that had been based on essentially a lease on otherwise private land that ended up expiring, and the park being under threat, if not actually moving forward with being demolished, despite improvements being made to it, because, well, again, of the deals made being gone with this, a huge increase in Texas state park land. Interesting to note that they put forth Texas ranks 35th nationally in state park acreage per capita, which honestly I'm kind of surprised about. I would have thought it was way higher, if only for like the Franklin Mountain State Park. Jeez Louise. So the fact that that's going to be worked on is frankly a good thing and could potentially, there's a lot for procurement. Also, of course, the 100th anniversary of the Texas State Park System. We got some ones that may or may not, we'll have to see, including like the Weiler Aerial Tramway and its operations being turned into more than just a sightseeing, but also a destination in its own right. Could be wrapped up in that. So that's why I'm kind of excited about it. But on some of the real big ticket items, again, noted from the Texas Tribune here, state budget leaders adopt some spending plans for 2024 through 2025, but still no compromise on property taxes and power plants. further noting that chief budget writers still have not announced compromises in some of the largest fights facing the Texas legislature. Again, on the back end, a lot of different notes, press releases from both campaigns, organizations, interested PACs, that kind of thing, on a lot of these. And some have even been suggesting and pushing for fundraising to put ads against Speaker Dade Phelan for not supporting the Senate's plan for the property tax relief based on essentially an increase in the amount of homestead exemptions more than much anything else. Whether or not that actually comes to fruition, that's at least part of the conversation I'm aware of. So that's one of these big fights. And again, the whole $1 billion for state parks is definitely great. And there is, well, it's expected that the 2-year budget proposal likely to top $300 billion in the state of Texas, as again noted by the Texas Tribune here. But again, some of those impressive, but not quite. Again, there's similar efforts that have been being considered when it comes to property tax relief. I don't think that there's much consensus against property tax relief. I mean, there's certainly some that have expressed their doubts about certain plans or another, but within both chambers, the idea of property tax relief and responding to that part of Texans, as we've talked about on this program, among other things, has certainly been a feature. But the way to go about it has been the real sticking point. And I can't say I'm surprised. And we'll think this could be the fight of it. Now, of course, this one has to happen. There is no, we left without a budget. Like, you're getting your butt right back in that seat. There's no way the governor doesn't immediately call a special session. Heck, I think that would call into question operations of the state if there was not a budget in place for it. I mean, as much as nationally, debt defaults, government shutdowns, and those kind of things end up being discussed. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Don't really remember that coming up for the state of Texas. Given that they only meet once every 2 years, if you didn't do your job, this is one of those throw the bums out kind of moments, in my mind. Anyway, Crazy Texan mentioning specifically, I want the trail in the middle of Trans Mountain to reopen. It's being worked on, is my understanding, even outside of this potential injection of funds. So it remains to be seen. But that is, of course, the one that's right past the heights midpoint within the canyon cuts, more or less on the west side. Part of it, it's closer to the west side overlook than it is the east side overlook anyways, though I think about it, having talked previously with some within the Franklin Mountain State Park. It's coming, just like not quite there yet. But with those, again, budget questions still up in the air, that could be a problem. And there's been even more on this, including again from the Texas Tribune here late yesterday, why tax policy experts fear the Texas House plan to lower property taxes could have dire ripple effects, particularly with the House plan of changing not just the amount that is done, again, the homestead exemption, that would, rough terms, the Senate's plan doubles it, as I've been, by the way, happy filing deadline for your home appraisal disputes. If you missed that yesterday, I realized I forgot to say that one, and also kind of did it in my own ad late last night. Haven't heard the response from me yet to let you all know if I do, because sure, it was like an 8% increase, but it was already over the increase we saw last year of what our actual appraisal was. So we're taking a look at it. We're going to go through the steps at the very least. We have a within the last year appraisal in hand. So we're going to give it a shot. Let you all know how that turns out. And how the process is. I'm both excited in a way that I know makes me sound weird. I will fully own up to that. But so again, the options between the differences in the House and Senate plans in the state of Texas, specifically House Speaker Dade Phelan, the Beaumont Republican is being noted, Governor Patrick, wants to tighten the state's cap on annual increases to a home's taxable value from 10 to 5%. That's the House plan, that is. Whereas, again, the Senate plan and has that, again, just basically wrote. But that's really where the, alarm bells are being sounded on the idea that, okay, you're changing the formulas and not even just how much can be assessed, but how much it can change, the delta change over time. And they got some interesting graphs worth looking at it over on the Texas Tribune on this story. So take a look at that if you are of interest, and this affects a lot of people. One last one that's percolating through the state legislature, that as much as we were talking about outdoors and the availability of them, interesting one noted, as much as there was a lot of contention, some confusion, but more debate going on with items like that ever so slightly seared into my memory, Proposition K. There was at least one law that is still now progressing through the Texas legislature, specifically, as again noted by the Texas Tribune, House Bill 2127. The Senate gave final approval and now have back to the House to hash out changes made by the Senate. And what's noted by the Texas Tribune here, just quoting directly, the sweeping legislation authored by State Rep Dustin Burrows, a Lubbock Republican, would bar cities and counties from issuing local ordinances that go further than what's already allowed under the broad sections of state law, including labor, agricultural, natural resources, and finance, noting that Governor Greg Abbott is one of the supporters, among other things. And so this is more, I guess, in the vein of the willingness the state has shown to kind of reach down into the local level and change some of the things. I mean, there have been essentially accusations of violating the concept of home rule when it comes to this as a, well, you can do whatever you want, but not like that. Been some of the criticism on here. Texas State Senator Brandon Creighton quoted as saying that the bill is, quote, a lifeline for small businesses who need consistency and certainty to invest and expand and grow. So that, even if Prop K had moved forward, this was going to be one of the biggest question marks I had about, given how much, again, businesses, ordinances, and the interplay between them would be at factor there. This one could have just completely upset the whole apple cart, potentially, because there's even some questions about, among other things, the breadth of the language of, okay, what counts as being, out of place or not, which, again, I'm pretty firm in my stance that overly broad laws do not good governance make. So we'll see what actually comes out of this one, as it's still expected to pass, but maybe not quite one of those have to pass the bill to know what's in it, but might have to pass the bill to see what the impact will be and probably how court cases end up progressing out of it. So that's kind of in a nutshell some of the major things being noted statewide coming out of the Texas legislature, but not quite clear on this. And also was one of the questions came up a little bit earlier about some activity going on at the international bridges, taking a look from the cams over at the city of El Paso, both on all of the Stanton, Paso del Norte, and Zaragoza bridges, at the very least, as of before my page refreshed right now, looking like they were flowing pretty well, nothing outside of the normal at the moment. So if there was a protest earlier today, and that wasn't a video from previous, does not seem to be taking place at least any of the city bridges at the moment. Though there are some other notes that have been brought up, including by El Paso Matters, on the amount of money being poured into ports of entry, noting here just briefly that earlier this month that, that the trade between two countries exceeding $1 million each minute, and that in July 2022 alone, more than $53 billion in crossing southern border via trucks and trains, putting forth specifically that there is billions being invested or speculated to be going into the major different ports of entry from both sides of it, with specifically that the U.S. has pledged 3.4, make that clear, billion to construct, acquire, and repair and alter 26 land ports of entry, including 20 at the Canadian border and 6 at the southern border, because, of course, there is some of the numbers already been talking about from like the, it wasn't the Transportation Department, GSA, General Services Administration, but Mexico has also pledged $1.5 billion between basically last year and next year. So some possibilities there. Of course, the Paso del Norte Bridge and its potential impact on specifically the Coliseum as one of the bigger local questions. It's not by any means a solo effort just on that. So let's go ahead and take that next break right now. And coming out of this break, we're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines for you as well. So that number to do so, if you want to get on the line, add your 2 cents, is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. The mother of a 3-year-old who drowned at an El Paso City water park over the weekend is criticizing the city. KFOX 14 spoke to Jessica Weaver, the mother of the 3-year-old boy. The child was found unresponsive in the pool at Camp Cohen on Saturday and then died at a local hospital on Sunday. Jessica Weaver, his mother, says the city of El Paso needs to be better prepared at its water parks to avoid this kind of tragedy from happening to other families. Meantime, police continue continue to investigate the drowning. City of El Paso Representative Joe Molinad has completed his assigned training after an investigation into a complaint filed by a city employee found that Molinad violated the city's sexual harassment prevention policy. Molinad finished the harassment prevention training on Wednesday. El Paso Mayor Oscar Leeser had written Molinad a letter of admonition in March, stating that Molinad made a female city employee feel uncomfortable at a holiday luncheon. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Westbound on Trans Mountain before the Summit Pass, a work truck is blocking the right lane. Stay to the left. Northbound Mesa Street is slow from the downtown exits up to Artcraft with 10-minute delays. Slow on Montana Avenue eastbound McRae out to Zaragoza, 16-minute delay. And police are on the scene of an earlier crash northbound Dyer at McCombs. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Finding a great hire can be a challenge. That's why there's Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 toward your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
No, not now. That sounds like it's going to cost you. I know what to do. I'm going to CashNetUSA.com. I can apply in minutes, get an instant decision, and if approved, I could have the money in my account as soon as the same business day.
When you need money fast, be the hero. Go to CashNetUSA.com to apply for the money you need now. The exact timing as to when your loan funds will be available will be determined by your banking institution.
Hi, I'm Scotty Clark from Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. The heat is back, so get ready, El Paso. It's going to be a long, hot summer. At Scott Heating and Cooling, we're ready to help you maintain and service your home and business HVAC system. We service all major brands of heating and cooling equipment, as well as commercial kitchen equipment and walk-in freezers. With appointments available 7 days a week, make an appointment online or call Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing today at 915-595-4529.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
Car crimes are on the rise. Protect yourself and your valuables this holiday season. When you park your car, always lock it down. Never leave keys in your vehicle. Never leave your windows down. Don't leave your valuables in plain sight, or you might return to a terrible sight. Try to park in well-lit areas. And most importantly, always lock it down. Brought to you by the Insurance Council of Texas and the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority. Learn more at lockitdowntx.com.
Attend the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, May 20th through the 21st at the Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University Avenue, Las Cruces, New Mexico. See dealers selling the finest and modern guns, custom knives, scopes, huge selection of ammo, and much more. Buy, sell, and trade at the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, May 20th through the 21st at the Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University Avenue, Las Cruces, New Mexico. Get $2 off admission. Go to azgunradio.com.
Bank of America has powerful digital solutions for local and global businesses, so you can make every move matter. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. Bank of America, N.A., copyright 2023.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. And a lot of people tuning in and chiming in over there, including Matt Olson, Jennifer Favor Howell, Ed Clora, Flaco Jimenez, Robbie Flores, James Holmes, Richard Janisic, Ida Beza Gardner, and Monica Cervantes, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, on there as well. And that's just the people dropping those likes and reacts. If you just want to, if you appreciate the ability to talk about these things, what affects us here in the borderland, as we are here for every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., drop that like, react, follow, whatever. Also, James Radcliffe, appreciating that as well. And James himself saying, when it comes to those property appraisals, if you're not happy with the decision for the EPCAD, El Paso Central Appraisal District Appraisal Review Board, you can request for binding arbitration. Hadn't gotten that far myself here. Again, hadn't been doing the whole homeowner thing. Finally got off my posterior and did the homestead exemption paperwork. So yeah, there's just so much fun. I definitely wouldn't make it as a bureaucrat, I don't think. Also, Bernadette Bandicole chiming in saying, good afternoon, leaving work and listening on radio. Hey, however you're tuning in, that works for you. Some are more interactive than other, and that's one of the reasons we like it. And mentioning as much, we do have that phone line open now, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Some availability on if you want to get in the queue, so to speak. We're going to be going ahead and taking that next break right now because we're right up against the top of the hour, and I don't want to have to unnecessarily cut anyone off from trying to talk about a point, because that's, of course, what we're here for. And at least one other thing I want to mention just before we briefly get to that is that I mentioned it, we didn't quite get to it, but again, from El Paso Matters, UTEP EPCC on the clock to spend millions in COVID relief money. That is, of course, related to what is being, I guess, hashed out nationally when it comes to the debt default, debt ceiling raise. One of the propositions has been, or the negotiation points, better way to put it probably, given all the baggage around propositions in this area lately, has been on the idea of clawing back the millions up to billions that has been left unspent in COVID relief and support funds. So local organizations may be looking to make that deadline before it's no longer available. So they have some specific numbers that are put up there, including that the $122 million given to EPCC, $154 million to UTEP, and $1.4 million to Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center El Paso, which is always a mouthful. But let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to those phone calls and a whole lot more comments as well. So if you want to get on that line, of course, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back out for this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Westbound on Trans Mountain before the Summit Pass, a stalled work truck is blocking the right lane. An injury accident reported northbound Yarborough approaching the 10 Gateway. A minor accident eastbound Pebble Hills at Ivanhoe Drive. And traffic is slow with up to 40-minute delays southbound on Global Reach between the Spur and Montana Avenue. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sun Up Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. I have a huge announcement. Thank you for making us #1 in total sales this year. To stay #1, we're offering the biggest savings ever. Hey, Jojo, tell everyone about our exciting offers.
You got it, boss man. Get huge savings on the biggest selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles in El Paso and surrounding areas at Sun Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Right now, get 10% off MSRP on all 2023 Ram 1500 Laramie trucks in stock. Get $5,500 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport. Get super low 2.9% APR for 72 months or $5,250 cash allowance on 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star trucks. Plus, don't worry about your trade or credit. Our aggressive lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. It's the season of huge savings at Sun Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat at I-10 at Sun Park Drive or online at sunparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 2.9% APR is $1,550 per thousand finance. All select vehicles will approve credit. Offers not combined.
With more and more people prioritizing their mental health, finding a therapist can often feel difficult and sometimes overwhelming. If you or someone you know is seeking help but facing challenges, NAMI, the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization, can help. NAMI offers free peer support groups, education programs, and a helpline to support you when the wait seems too long or affordable treatment is difficult to find. You are not alone. Visit NAMI.org for information, resources, and support. NAMI.org.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy says there's still a lot of work to do to come to an agreement to raise the debt ceiling.
We only have 15 days really to go. We've got to find a way that we can curb our spending, raise our debt limit, and also grow our economy.
Following a meeting at the White House with President Biden, McCarthy said lawmakers have set the stage to carry on more negotiations between staff. A White House statement noted the president remains optimistic about reaching a responsible bipartisan budget agreement if both sides negotiate in good faith. Florida will send more than 1,100 law enforcement agents and National Guard members to the Texas-Mexico border. Republican Governor Ron DeSantis announced the move in a letter sent by Texas Governor Greg Abbott to all 50 states requesting support in the ongoing border crisis. Former President Obama says he's worried Americans are in different realities. Speaking on CBS, he said a divided, splintered media is what concerns him most. He said that Americans may have disagreed on how to solve issues in the past, but at least people could agree on what the issues were. Americans' overwhelmingly positive views of childhood vaccines are steady since the COVID pandemic. Lisa Taylor has more.
A Pew Research Center poll found that 88% of U.S. adults say the benefits of vaccines to protect kids from measles, mumps, and rubella outweigh the risks. That's about the same number from the same poll in 2016 and 2019 pre-pandemic. The survey found that Americans are more hesitant about COVID vaccines than the MMR shot. Nearly 3 in 4 respondents said the benefits of the MMR vaccine were high, compared to under half who said the same about COVID vaccines. I'm Lisa Taylor.
The Anti-Defamation League is criticizing comments made by Elon Musk about Democratic super donor George Soros. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. A new poll shows more than 60% of Republican primary voters back former President Trump as he runs for the White House again in 2024. Michael Kastner has the details.
The Morning Consult poll shows Trump leading Florida Governor Ron DeSantis by 43 points, with DeSantis securing support from 18% of respondents. Trump's former Vice President Mike Pence had just 6% of the vote in the new survey. Both DeSantis and Pence have yet to officially jump into the race. I'm Michael Kastner.
2 New York City rappers are among nearly 3 dozen alleged gang members facing charges in Brooklyn. District Attorney Eric Gonzalez alleges Michael Williams, a.k.a. Chef G, used his success to fund and encourage gang activity across Brooklyn. Rapper Tegan Chambers, a.k.a. Sleepy Hallow, is charged as a co-conspirator. The drill rappers are allegedly a part of the 8 Trey Crips and engaged in a gang war that was triggered by a 2020 shooting that injured 5 rivals and killed another. A new study looks at the impacts of marijuana use during pregnancy. Sarah Lee Kessler has more.
Researchers at Central Michigan University's College of Medicine looked at marijuana's effects when smoked or ingested during the first trimester of pregnancy. They found a significant decrease in eventual birth weight. That's important because health experts say low birth weight babies are more likely to have ADHD, learning disabilities, and developmental delays. When pregnant women use marijuana during the rest of the pregnancy, babies had a smaller head circumference. Their message to women: avoid cannabis while pregnant.
New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy has signed a Seinfeld-inspired law aimed at combating telemarketers. The law is affectionately nicknamed the Seinfeld Bill in honor of an iconic episode when Jerry offers to call back a telemarketer. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Finding a great hire can be a challenge. That's why there's Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 toward your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all of your favorite radio stations.
Rover's Morning Glory. It's The Woody Show. It's Elliot in the Morning.
All of the once-in-a-lifetime events.
iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Woo! All of the best free curated playlists.
It's everything that rocks.
All of the great podcasts for every interest.
This is Freddie Prinze Jr. from the Wrestling with Freddie podcast.
All of the mind-blowing contests.
$20,000.
Awesome. All of your favorite superstars.
This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
Best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
Getting a news
feed on your phone while driving?
Makes driving more difficult.
This is dangerous.
Getting a news feed without a computer or mobile device?
It would be impossible.
Unless, of course, you get your live news feeds at the top and bottom of the hour.
It's easy.
Traffic and weather all day.
It's as simple as that.
Trending stories tend to change.
Every minute of every day.
Twice an hour, we'll feed your curiosity.
Stay informed. Shouldn't we listen? They're hungry.
News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Oh, geez. The comments give me such life, and I still find myself being surprised sometimes. So if you want to chime in over there on those pages, feel free. Some even in between. But then also, of course, phone lines full up at the moment, but keep that number handy, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSN. A lot of response to a lot of the different things we're talking about, including Maria comment and a comment I didn't want to miss out on, saying some El Paso pools remain closed in 2022. There are not enough lifeguards to safely operate them. Pools are generally staffed by young lifeguards. This is a tremendous responsibility. The response time of approximately 5 minutes is commendable. Began praying for the family as soon as I heard no result will ever be sufficient. They have lost their child. And again, that's why, as much as that's a painful, and the fact that it links to some of the larger stories that have been going on, is one of the reasons we brought it up. And I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't something significantly proactive. There could be even more penalties, investigation sought. I don't know. That's one of those only time will tell kind of things here, but let's go ahead and get to those phone lines now. We do have David on the west side here with us right now. David, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. I wanted to talk about the CAD protest process with you.
Oh, sure.
So this is based on experience, and I hold a real estate license, and so what happens is CAD sends you their valuation based on market.
Sure.
What I found out is that they're basing their market valuation on listing prices of homes, not what the houses have actually sold for. When I called them out on this, they were highly offended, and they said, well, we don't have access to the MLS. So my message to your listeners is, when you get your protest, you ask for evidence, and they give you comps, right? And so what you need to do is you need to get that to a person that has a real estate license that can cross-reference the properties that they're identifying with prices that have actually sold. Because what's happening is they're getting a house that's listed for $340,000 that perhaps only sold for $265,000, and they're hanging their hat on that. And I think it's I think it's really outrageous what they're doing, and their excuse is that we don't have access to the MLS. So the other issue is that you go in front of them and you have these citizen volunteers, and unfortunately they act as the judge, jury, and executioner.
Sure.
And basically they're taking your side. You have comps, you have black and white data, and then you have this appraiser person there saying, well, this is the best that we have. And so unfortunately the data that they're putting values on your property on are flawed. I think the media should look into this because they concede that the numbers are bad. And so if you don't protest, that's why all the values are just going up, because the people that protest aren't protesting correctly. And this is based on firsthand knowledge. And so I think it's worth fighting. And I also think it's aligning yourself with someone that has a real estate license that can verify it, because I do think the people of El Paso are getting hosed, and they don't know any better, unfortunately.
It's interesting. I mean, of course, we had on and is available online in that previous edition of the show, the interview with Dinah Kilgore, the chief appraiser and, director, CEO. What's the full title here? Got it around here somewhere. Make sure I'm not saying it wrong there. With the Central Appraisal District. Okay, there it is. Finally got it in my cards yet. Executive director. There you go. Don't want to misname it. But I mean, yeah, knowing the process, and I mean, I'll be honest, I was kind of on the fence because the valuation change we were looking at last year over this year was again about 7-8%, give or take. And so it was given the fact that we've seen in recent years that there had been upwards, 15-17% increases, maybe not necessarily in one year, but over subsequent years. I was kind of debating whether to go through it or not. Finally, after some discussions with the family, decided that, yeah, we'll go ahead for it because, I mean, it's not like it can go up from us having protested it. So there's literally nothing to lose in our mindset and mentality. So be interesting to see to go through it. I'll have to check further into that. We're getting into the process of presenting our evidence, which is, in our case, an appraisal that we had upon the purchase of the house, setting its value, which was, to be fair, a little bit over what we paid for it, but wasn't, tens of thousands or, dozens of thousands of dollars over it. So we'll see this through here, but that's an interesting perspective you got in there. I'll definitely have to look further into it.
Yeah, do it. So you're going to get data on your house. You're going to get houses they're hanging their hat on. Go ahead and cross-reference that to sold prices. You're going to be surprised, and I think there's something there.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll take all the ammunition I can get when it comes to this kind of thing, so I'll definitely have to look into that. We'll appreciate the perspective.
Yes, sir. Take care.
You have a good one there as well. All right, sometimes we get some things that surprise even me and things I didn't know, which is probably means it's a good day. Anyway, let's go back to those phone lines now. Again, remember that phone number, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Ben on the east side right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Was the child responsive when he was found?
Not responsive was the initial report. Again, referring to the reporting from our news partners over at KFOX 14. Pulling that one up here. You trying to find the exact part of it. Yeah, found unresponsive in the pool and then died at the hospital Sunday morning.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can't understand non-responsive, but he dies the next day. I don't understand that one. But anyway, just anybody out there with a young child, watch them always.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Because nobody is going to watch your child like you will or should.
That sounds about right.
Okay. Now, also, thank you, Florida and Governor DeSantis. It's about time that some of the other states send some support to Texas to defend our nation. With all the people upset about, from New York, sending people up there and everything, if they want the problem to stay down here, why don't they send some people down here? Why don't Illinois send people down here? Why doesn't California send people down here? Okay, but thank you, Florida and Governor DeSantis.
I mean, I would be surprised if New York or Illinois were to do anything on that. But I think that's the real, and I've realized that there was a comment from yesterday about particularly like veterans being displaced in deference to new bookings being done in these hotels for stuff like that. The caller, I didn't realize was referring to stuff happening outside of town, and I've heard of that and seen some of the accounts happening in, say, New York, Chicago, other major cities like that. So I would fully expect that. I mean, well, this is where the impacts are really happening. As much as we are still seeing a lot of response, even if it's not quite the fever pitch that it were either expecting or that it was kind of reached right at the end of Title 42, it's not over. It's still going on, but we're still a pass-through primarily because, of course, the resettlement is not the focus here. As much has been said, again, if anyone can point me towards a resettlement effort based in this area, I would love to know more about that. But the thing I'm going off of, statements from local and city, county, and other elected officials in our area has been pretty much about keeping it moving, not being a permanent solution in our immediate region.
Well, what I'm saying is that there should be help from other states,
sure.
Colorado, Washington, all these blue states out here that are saying, that they have problems with, that we've got illegal problem. We're not taking care of them and everything. Why don't they send some people down here to help us? Okay.
No, I get what you're saying. Mm-hmm.
This has to do with the national debt, and I think this has something to do with what's going to affect El Paso.
Oh, sure.
Our interest payments on the national debt in 2022 was $475 billion. Interest costs grew 35% last year and projected to grow another 35% next year to $640 billion. The federal government collected $5 trillion in revenue in 2022, but we spent $6.5 trillion, a $1.45 trillion deficit. Halfway through fiscal year 2023,
yeah, give or take,
we have a Fed deficit of $1.5 trillion. And in February 2023, the CBO projected the deficit was going to be $1.4 trillion. Where are we going to come up with this, the extra, another one? We don't have the money now. Where are we going to come up with all this extra money?
Well, that's where it comes to the raising of the debt ceiling.
Stop spending money. And that's what the Republicans in the House are fighting for. You can't just keep on spending. You're going to destroy this country.
I mean, yeah, you're talking about the plan that they put forth, the bill that they did end up passing, primarily along party lines, of saying, yes, it will have a debt ceiling raise, but it will come with certain, changes to programs, changes to spending. I got to say, I mean, we've talked about this previously about, the way money works in this country, full faith and credit of the United States and its government going in and what's printed on the bills, among other things, that the debt ceiling limit is basically the part of where you get around what has been seen, as much as Eric von Holstein-Rathel referring to firing up the printing presses. It's how you get around what has been seen in previous epochs, previous times, and different governments, of when there was the monetizing of the debt, of the printing enough money to pay it off without being concerned about what does that do to the actual value of the money and the inflation coming along with that, because inflation is absolutely a part of the way the monetary systems work these days. I mean, there's never been deflation is a demon word, if you want to put it that way, as much as someone may think, well, isn't things getting cheaper, or things costing less a good thing? That would be seen as, that would set off alarm bells, the likes of which we have not seen, I'm pretty confident to say, in my lifetime. So the whole debt ceiling vote is basically one of the important underpinnings of how they get around that, how they get around the idea of, well, we're just, printing more money without any basis behind it, because therefore someone has a stake in it. So that's part of where that fight comes in. But I mean, to say that there is also, looking at the curtailing of federal spending, because I mean, I'll stand by my statement on this, that the full faith and credit is very much therefore a subjective thing. It'll work as long as people believe into it. So the question is, at what point will people not believe, and therefore the wheels fall off?
Modern monetary theory. There was a Democratic California Congressman, Brad Sherman, that came out and said crypto people have made over $1 trillion out of thin air. They accuse the U.S. government of making money out of thin air, and maybe we do, but we are the U.S. government.
Sure.
So that's where I would say the majority of the Democratic Congress and Senate people are coming from. They think money can be made, just come out of thin air.
Yeah,
and it doesn't work that way.
I mean, yeah, we've seen it across multiple administrations, multiple sessions of Congress, that spending is bad if we're not in control of it. But of course, we have to spend when we are in control on our priorities. There's not a whole lot of impetus to put the brakes on unless it's an oppositional thing, which I guess you could kind of argue what's going on right now. But again, I think that the real question that is not in so many words anyway, or very specifically put forth, is, what is the confidence limits? When will people start thinking, wait, do I truly buy this? Do I truly still believe in this? Because sure, one or two people doing that may not make a difference. Hell, maybe even 1 million people wouldn't make a difference. But you start talking about tens, hundreds, and particularly other foreign countries no longer believing it, affecting the reserve currency status of it. I mean, that's the kind of game that we're playing, and no one really knows the rules except for what has happened previously.
And you're absolutely right about the foreign governments. Foreign governments are dumping our debt. They are going to their own currencies. The U.S. dollar is no longer going to be king if we keep on doing this, because just like you say, the only thing that we have backing us is on that dollar bill. It says the full faith and credit of the United States. And if you don't believe in that, then you dump the dollar. And that's what's going to happen if we keep on doing what we're doing. So go Kevin McCarthy, please, and stay well, stay safe, and let's go Brandon.
Yeah, we'll appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we got more phone lines open. We got more conversations that we'll continue on having. So the number to call is, of course, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An accident is blocking the exit ramp on Gateway North at Cassidy Road exit. I-10 eastbound starting to slow down downtown from Cotton over to Reynolds with 7-minute delays. Stop and go traffic. An accident eastbound North Loop Drive after Penndale is causing traffic to be backed up to Lee Trevino Drive. And a minor accident eastbound Pebble Hills at Ivanhoe. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Shopping for new blinds? At Blindster, we offer over 50 different blinds, shades, and shutters at low prices, custom made for your windows, and shipping is free. Shop at home and order 10 free samples of any product before you buy. Blindster.com.
A catalytic converter is an important component of your car's exhaust system. They can cost several $1,000s to replace. Cats can be removed in under a minute and have a high scrap value. Keep your vehicle safe from cat burglars. Park in well-lit areas. Install a protective device. Have your VIN number etched onto your catalytic converter. It's a total catastrophe. If your catalytic converter is stolen, lock it down. Learn more at lockitdowntx.com. Brought to you by the Insurance Council of Texas and the Motor Vehicle Crime Prevention Authority.
Attend the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, May 20th through the 21st at the Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University Avenue, Las Cruces, New Mexico. See dealers selling the finest and modern guns, custom knives, scopes, huge selection of ammo, and much more. Buy, sell, and trade at the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, May 20th through the 21st at the Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University Avenue, Las Cruces, New Mexico. Get $2 off admission. Go to azgunradio.com.
A driver who isn't wearing their seatbelt may get a ticket. A driver who isn't wearing their seatbelt during a crash may not make it home. Don't risk it. Click it or ticket. Paid for by NHTSA.
Attorney Joe Cordell. Business owners and professionals face special challenges in divorce court. In addition to everything else going on, they have to contend with allegations that they are earning more than they are, coupled with claims on their business or practice itself. Clients with assets depend on their divorce lawyer's skills in these matters, and that's why it's so important to hire someone that has those skills.
Schedule an appointment with one of Cordell & Cordell's Dallas-Fort Worth area attorneys. Offices in Dallas, Fort Worth, and St. Louis. CordellCordell.com.
A driver who isn't wearing their seatbelt may get a ticket. A driver who isn't wearing their seatbelt during a crash may not make it home. Don't risk it. Click it or ticket. Paid for by NHTSA.
Why should you volunteer with Meals on Wheels?
I never thought that 5 minutes could make so much difference in the lives of 2 people, but it has.
Drop off a warm meal and get more than you expect. Volunteer at americaletsdolunch.org. Brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Stay informed at KTSMradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, joining us over on the various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. It's some of the main ones. Anyway, a lot of comments coming in there, and those dropping likes and reacts that we always appreciate. Most recently, Alex Campos, Marky Mandango, and James Ratcliffe, but a lot more there to be appreciated. So, well, you, of course, got those phone lines open right now, full up at the moment, but again, just keep that number handy as we're getting close to the middle of the last half hour of this show right now. Again, that number 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. I believe right now we do have my list here. We do have Eric on the east side with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Hello?
Hi there. Yes, you're on the show.
Hello?
Hello. Can you hear us?
Yeah. I guess my signal is coming in and out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll be able to hear your responses. But,
okay.
In regard to Ben's comment, concerns, about immigrants and their impact on the national debt, they're a product of bad faith right-wing information sources that are doing everything in their power to dehumanize and demonize these Christian Hispanic immigrants coming in here into the country, trying to describe them as economic burdens to the country. When you look at the long-term data and the studies done on their impact, they contribute, they reduce the debt, they contribute tax revenue to the local government, state governments, and the federal government. Like, if you look at, I was looking at a meta-analysis from the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business, a pretty respected academic institution. They state immigration generally improves the government's fiscal situation, as many immigrants pay more in taxes over a lifetime than they consume in government services, while natives bear some upfront costs for the provision of public services to immigrants and their families. The evidence suggests a net positive return on the investment over the long term. Natives in this context are American citizens. So, we have another situation where conservatives are only focusing on the immediate short-term costs and not looking about the return on investment these investments produce as it relates to tax revenues and deficits. And it also says, this study says they're also less likely than comparably low-income natives to receive public assistance. And it also says if immigrants' children are not already fluent English speakers, the per-student cost of education may be substantially higher than for native-born children. These factors impose short-term costs on state budgets, but over the long term, however, the upward economic mobility and tax-paying lifetime of second-generation immigrants more than offset the initial fiscal burden.
Mm-hmm.
And the bulk of academic, as also a part of this study, they state the bulk of academic research confirms, because there's a lot, conservatives are always concerned about, or not always, but they pretend to be concerned about immigration's impact on, wages for Americans, specifically the low-skilled workers. It says here that the bulk of academic research confirms that wages are unaffected by immigration over the long term, and that the economic effects of immigration are mostly positive for natives and for the overall economy. The evidence suggests that when immigration increases the supply of labor, firms increase investment to offset any reduction in capital per worker, thereby keeping average wages from falling over the long term. And it says, studies find that immigration has actually raised average wages of native-born workers during the last few decades, and that immigrants assimilate faster in the United States compared to European nations. And conservatives' views on immigration are largely the product of bad faith information sources like Sean Hannity and most here on this station that fearmonger and pander to their racism and their inability to research these things. Like Ben, he's concerned about the government failing and the national debt. If he was that concerned, he should have researched what is the long-term impact of these immigrants on tax revenues.
I'm not going to pretend to speak for Ben here, but I think these were two separate things. Of course, immigration, border security are constantly topics around here, but my hearing of his comments was not on the point of, therefore, impact on the, again, bottom line, the national debt. I think that the national debt was of its own accord here. So I don't think their link exists that you're making there. But okay, hadn't looked at that specific study you're looking at. But if you look up an article actually out year ago, a little bit over, from Knowledge at Wharton. So knowledge.wharton.upenn.edu. We'll have to delve into the full of it, but has some interesting points being made there already. Immigration and America's aging time bomb. Kind of what you mentioned there, the whole replacing of people that are, of a workforce that isn't necessarily replacing itself here when population and birth rates drop below the replacement rate, issues that are already being seen and felt in other Western in general, industrialized, more specifically countries, because Japan has also had a similar thing. But the subtitle of this article specifically reads that new research from the Penn-Wharton budget model finds that increasing legal immigration in the U.S. leads to long-term fiscal benefits, while policies that legalize unauthorized immigrants increase government debt. So at least one previous comment right now said from, I might have lost it in the milieu here, but think it was, Stephen Christopher saying legal immigration. Specifically, that legal immigration can lead to this. And that's, again, another thing coming out from Wharton specifically on this. So that's just an article title I'm finding right now. I haven't particularly delved into Wharton specifically on immigration, but I'll have to delve further into it.
Yeah, I couldn't hear, you were breaking up and off and on, but I think that specific study that you were referencing, which is a newer one than the one that I was, also says from it says when immigrants enter the labor force, it's also important to understand that these asylum seekers, they're not illegal immigrants. These are legal workers who are going to be paying taxes. The majority of these immigrants, they're not illegals, and these companies aren't hiring illegal workers to, these are asylum seekers. They legally work here. And and it says here, from that study, the one that you're reading from, when immigrants enter the labor force, they increase the productive capacity of the economy and raise GDP. Their incomes rise, but so do those of natives. It's a phenomenon dubbed immigration surplus. And while a small share of additional GDP accrues to natives, typically 0.2 to 0.4%, it still amounts to $36 to $72 billion per year. Sorry, that was from the Bush Center. That was from a think tank that Bush Jr. financed. It wasn't from UPenn. But the fact of the matter is that when you look at the data, it radically differs from what these right-wing propagandists on this station and that exist in right-wing media are saying.
Okay, and I'll continue to put this forth here. I'm happy to talk about these things, but this show is not going to be the whipping boy for anything said in any other show, either on this station or in generally on the sphere here. So I'll have to look for that, the Bush one you're mentioning there. I'll have to look that up further here. But again, the line between legal and illegal immigration, or legalizing unauthorized immigrants, as that study puts there, is important. And yeah, those that are seeking asylum and are going through the process are certainly, they have an authorization. I think what is being talked about, we've talked a lot about I-9 as the federal employment verification, and now they're seeing the either creation or return to prevalence of the I-10 program. No, not talking about the highway, but talking about a different level of verification available to those that have, temporary authorization. I mean, temporary protected status is a separate thing entirely, but those that are pending court cases and therefore have been given authorization to pursue work under the current policies in this current administration, yeah, that certainly does exist. But also, I would say that particularly the asylum cases are not going to be really a factor of the long-term effects you're talking about. They're going to be, to borrow a phrase, transitory at best. I mean, transitory in this case being 5 to 10 years, potentially, given the backlog that we're seeing at this point. But to say that those are going to contribute long-term wouldn't be that, because it still remains, at the very least here in El Paso, but numbers bear out across a whole lot of other sectors of the border and other immigration court cases, that in some place, again, I'll say El Paso for sure, specifically, that the denial rates of asylum cases are upwards of 90%, high 90%. So as much as this is, I mean, there is an impact from it, and I frankly agreed with you on this point, but to say that this is therefore a long-term net benefit just doesn't bear out, because it is not long-term. So interesting points you bring up there, and I do appreciate discussing the issues, as much as got a couple jabs in at things not even said on this program, but appreciate the point in the call. Got to take that next break right now, particularly since you can't quite hear us, but we'll be happy to talk further about these issues. Let's go and take that break right now. That number, of course, to call if you want to get on the line is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. The mother of a 3-year-old who drowned at an El Paso City water park over the weekend is criticizing the city. KFOX 14 spoke to Jessica Weaver, the mother of the 3-year-old boy. The child was found unresponsive in the pool at Camp Cohen on Saturday and then died at a local hospital on Sunday. Jessica Weaver, his mother, says the city of El Paso needs to be better prepared at its water parks to avoid this kind of tragedy from happening to other families. Meantime, police continue to investigate the drowning. City of El Paso Representative Joe Molinad has completed his assigned training after an investigation into a complaint filed by a city employee found that Molinad violated the city's sexual harassment prevention policy. Molinad finished the harassment prevention training on Wednesday. El Paso Mayor Oscar Leeser had written Molinad a letter of admonition in March stating that Molinad made a female city employee feel uncomfortable at a holiday luncheon. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
A multi-vehicle crash, I-10 westbound at Reynolds exit, causing big backups. I-10 westbound is slow with 15-minute delays from the loop to the 54 Patriot. Is I-10 eastbound slow, too, with stop-and-go traffic downtown from the Dallas exit over to Paisano with 8-minute delays. Slow traffic eastbound Montana from Hawkins out to Zaragoza, 10-minute backup. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Temperatures for tonight still on the mild side as we're still seeing some muggy conditions out there. We're looking at lows 50s to lower 60s, so a mild start for your Wednesday morning. 10% chance of an isolated storm, a little hotter for tomorrow, around 88 degrees. As we look to our Thursday, partly cloudy, breezy, 10% chance of a storm, hotter again on Thursday with a high around 90. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. Finding a great hire can be a challenge. That's why there's Indeed. Their powerful hiring platform makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 toward your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
No, not now. That sounds like it's going to cost you.
I know what to do. I'm going to CashNetUSA.com. I can apply in minutes, get an instant decision, and if approved, I could have the money in my account as soon as the same business day.
When you need money fast, be the hero. Go to CashNetUSA.com to apply for the money you need now. The exact timing as to when your loan funds will be available will be determined by your banking institution.
El Paso Electric is proud to present The Installers, live in your neighborhood. With their unique talent, they're bringing smart meters to every home and business, and harmonies your electric bill. Smart meters give you the power to control energy use so you can rock and save every month. Let me see your hands in the air. Doors open spring 2023. Find your tour date at epelectric.com/smartmeter.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com, and I sell custom blinds designed for do-it-yourselfers. Unlike stock blinds offered at big box retailers, Blindster blinds are custom made for your windows and shipping is free. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Donna from Louisiana. The storm just hit, and we went from donating to the food bank to needing it.
Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. I'm going to go ahead and post up the article I was mentioning there. I don't have the other one necessarily handy over on our Facebook particularly, so check that out for yourself if you want to. But there's a whole lot more to go there, and we'll get to the few more calls as we can. As also Richard Lewis, Marky Mendingo, and Richard Janasik chiming in. Richard Janasik and I guess Marky Mendingo investing heavily in that Arizona beachfront real estate. Sounds like here over the San Andreas Fault, turns it into an island that drifts out to sea on the idea of California. Again, it could work out eventually. Might take a few dozen generations, but well, stranger things have happened. Anyway, back to the phone calls right now. We do have Richard in the Northeast on the line with us right now. Richard, thanks for joining us.
Hello. On that last remark about the beachfront property, no lie, I actually have land over there near Parker, Arizona.
So you're already invested.
So
okay, yeah.
Anyway, I called and we got interrupted Friday because of the phone lines.
Oh,
But,
sure.
I was out of town last week, and I'm able to listen online. But I know last week I think you were playing old replays of interviews. I think one of them was Prop K, and the other one was the current situation now. And that's what I called to talk about. But and just a quick note on the Prop K stuff that I had talked when I called in last time.
Oh, sure.
The issue of climate and all that. It's actually climate change. And the one thing that kind of annoys me that it gets politicized, but that's kind of frequent based on what I read on the Facebook page and the callers and calling. Everything does not have to be politicized. And I try to look at the bigger picture, and I'm not talking about a left-wing agenda or this, that, and the other thing, but at some point, the climate change should be addressed because we could be dealing with drought, and in a growing city like El Paso, like my hometown of Phoenix, water's going to be an issue one of these days. So that's just something to think about. It's not global warming, it's not carbon or anything like that. It's a totality of what we might have to deal with. Actually, our children might have to deal with. So I just think it's a good idea to continue to pursue that avenue. But that's all I really want to say on that. But I also called on what's going on because I wasn't sure last week what was going on locally because the March 11th date came and went. But I had the privilege of talking with somebody here just today and last night. He's a reporter for an independent news agency out of Phoenix.
Okay.
It's not affiliated with Fox or any of that stuff. But we were talking about these things, how things just get spread out, misinformation, and I agree to certain extents. And that reflects here on the people calling in the show. With all due respect, I mean, I know you get your a lot of your information from both parties, and that's fine.
Sure.
But really, I think the bottom line is when we want to share news, we want to share what really is true, not what your political affiliation is. And we were talking about that. So I toured this guy around here, and I showed him the border. I showed him where some of the people were coming over and where they were going, like the Opportunity Center. He went downtown. He went to a meeting. He was just getting information. And, the one thing that we concluded, there is no invasion. Yes, there's migrants. Yes, there might be some bad actors. Yes, the fentanyl's coming over. But for the most part, this is really no different in a much different context than Ellis Island, where there's just people that are coming over to this country because they want a better life. And they're here. So I kind of facetiously said, what are we going to do with this current situation? Are we just going to stop them at the Rio Grande and just send them back over or what? They're here. So growing up, I believe, even though I lean left in American principles, but as far as I recall since childhood, this nation has helped people. And I get appalled by some of the things I hear from people, and I'm just kind of getting annoyed about that. Now, I understand all the legalities about immigration. Right. I know there's a process. But, you said this on the show before, and many others that have have good reputations as far as sharing information. We've had several administrations for the last few decades, and we still have the same problem. So this finger pointing really is not doing us any good. And the second problem that we have in 2023, when we try to talk about these things politically from both sides of the aisle, we don't talk anymore. We just point fingers. We call each other names. We call shows like this, and we come up with, facetious remarks. That doesn't solve the problem, people. Okay, so I just challenge people. We can actually work through this because we've been through much tougher times in this country than what's going on here. And unfortunately, these people are coming over. Some of them just need help. So that's what I wanted to share. Okay. I'm encouraging more of some good discourse about the local issues here concerning El Paso.
Certainly.
And lastly, about this individual, I defended El Paso even though I'm not from here. People are not just coming over here in terms of invasion. I will defend it because I hold El Paso dear in my heart. So I just want to share that with you all. That's all.
Oh, well, I appreciate the thoughts and the commentary there. Do appreciate it and appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Okay.
I think we lost him a little bit there at the end there. Anyway, so what I'll say this is that, I eschew the language of invasion because, frankly, we're talking about this in terms of there being, an unarmed one. And sure, people find the language of war persuasive in a lot of ways, but I got to say I disagree with it. I mean, yeah, there are certainly bad actors, and I firmly stand by my position that the idea of not having control over it is not a good one. So that much definitely needs to be worked on. I'll firmly agree with that there. And I mean, yeah, there's the whole, language at the Statue of Liberty, give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free, among other things. And I still think that fits the spirit of America. But I mean, once we start talking about tens of thousands at any given point and in short points of time, wanting to not go through the process, I mean, we do have laws, we do have requirements, and those seeking to circumvent that, just allowing that to happen is also not a good thing, I gotta say. But I do think that there's more common ground that can be found on this and solutions that can be found, as much as I still will call for until it happens. So probably the better part of forever on a comprehensive immigration solution that both deals with the laws and deals with the physical needs, security, the information, all that stuff. And frankly, the information, I will say warfare on this, because we got propaganda to counter that may or may not have happened effectively. I'm still kind of waiting for more post-mortem on the immediate aftermath of Title 42. But I mean, yeah, the fact of people doing, illegal entry into the United States and those aspects of it are absolutely, I mean, that's a problem. And leaving it unaddressed will just further on problems. I'll definitely say that, like Claudia Soto saying over there. So let's go and take, I think we got time for at least another call or two on the line here. Going down the list, we do have Tom and Otero on the line with us right now. Tom, thanks for joining us.
Hey, what's up, Andrew?
Hey there, what's on your mind?
You can't compare this to Ellis Island. That's insane. Okay. They didn't have to call out the National Guard to Ellis Island. And as far as helping people, if you look around this country, there's a lot of Americans that need help right now. In 2021, this isn't a government study. It's actually a fact on the state of Texas website. Illegal immigration that year, which was nearly nothing compared to right now, cost Texas taxpayers $850 million. That's a drop in the bucket compared to what we're seeing right now. You got National Guard. I mean, it's the mayor, your own mayor called the state of emergency. My God.
Sure. I mean, yeah, that's definitely been a factor.
It ain't Ellis Island, man. And as far as disinformation, I wonder if young Eric has read the Durham report, or the fact that Hunter Biden's laptop was in the FBI's custody all the time, all the while they're calling it Russian disinformation. People need to wake up. But no, illegal immigration is not a net plus as far as to the welfare of American taxpayers. I'll tell you that right now.
And I think what the previous caller, not to try to put words in his mouth, but I've heard some previous things along the lines of that Ellis Island, that the patterns of and the entries that happened through there weren't done in an authorized way. I mean, sure, it was a controlled entry point, as someone else said, and I'll agree with that, but that there wasn't anyone saying, hey, can I go ahead and come in? I mean, there were issues later on with that, where there were even like boats being turned around, among other things, but it was a otherwise fairly open, like you showed up and you got processed, and that's most of what there was to it. I think that's what he was probably getting at, without trying to speak for him right in any way.
Yeah, well, I know I had family. One side of my family came to Ellis Island, and they weren't putting them up in hotels.
Yeah,
they weren't out there giving them culturally appropriate meals, because they're from Ireland. I mean, once you hit the ground, you were on your own, buddy. You know what
True
I mean?
enough. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, there's what scene am I thinking of? A great scene from, what is it, Gangs of New York, the Daniel Day-Lewis and Scorsese film of people getting off the boat and during the Civil War being, all right, here's your U.S. citizenship, and here is the document you just signed entering into the United States Army. Now you're going to Antietam, or something along those lines.
That's exactly what happened. In fact, it wasn't too shortly after that, my people that did come and ended up in the Civil War, they grabbed the Irish real quick, like.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's been documented,
but
certainly.
Anyway, I just want I think some young people need to wake up to what's going on. I'm an old man, and I'm 70 years old, but what's happening now is going to cost them dearly if you're a young person. With $32 trillion debt, national debt, I mean, they won't be able to retire till they're 80 if we don't get this thing turned around.
Yeah, sometimes what France is doing seems interesting, if not totally feasible in this country when it comes to the protests / frankly riots over that. But we ain't there yet, and I don't think we'll get there anytime soon. But again, I've known to be surprised in the past, like this whole Title 42 situation, among other things. So appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
You too.
All right, with that, I think we can squeeze in one more quick call here. We do have Marco over in Central. Marco, we got about like a couple minutes here.
Sounds good, Andrew. Thank you.
Sure thing.
So I kind of wanted to talk about, you're wondering if Prop 42 ended in a whimper. Well,
yeah, sure.
It's the illusion. You got to understand,
these
NGOs are organizing them on the other side of the border. So they have tent cities all over the place. They don't even report on half of them. But in McAllen, it's massive.
Yeah.
And so it didn't really stop. All they did was put a pause on it. The reason it stopped, let me tell you, this is my opinion, by the way.
Sure.
Is that Mayor Leeser wanted to be the Joker, but he ended up being Polka Dot Man because he was a terrible person to try and run the scheme of human trafficking, and he let it get out of control. And so the perception in the national media is that this guy is an incompetent baddie. And so I suspect that the administration said, you're just dumb. You don't know what you're doing. They took it away from him in the middle of the night. They siphoned everybody off to these schools, have them processed, and had them removed from the city immediately. And then the next couple of days, you had InfoWars in El Paso, which was beautiful.
Sure.
Owen Schroeder goes to one of the gates, I think it's gate 42, and lo and behold, what do you see? And you can go see it.
Yeah.
You have the Border Patrol agents literally jump this little ravine as if they're in speed. They start loading these people in a dangerous place. And then they have the Border Patrol trucks try and block the view of the journalists that were there. And Arden Schroyer, to his credit, was like, we're filthy Americans and we shouldn't say anything. Here comes the immigrants. They're the rightful owners of this country is basically what they're doing. So really, to answer everybody's question about migration, is it beneficial? Is it worth it? It doesn't even matter if it's worth it or not, because what they're doing is they're bringing in uneducated, massive amounts of replacement human beings because of the amount of, because we have a collapsing population in America, actually all over the world. It's been happening since about 1978. And so there's not enough human beings in America to do the things we want. But unfortunately, we're bringing in uneducated replacement human beings to try and do something. But here's the saddest part. That just literally encourages Cloward and Piven. You start to overwhelm the system collapses, which is what they want, and it's so blatant in your face. I mean, if you're willing to have Border Patrol agents, and I'm just asking this, look, if you're a Border Patrol agent, get it, you have a job, you're doing your duty, but so did the Nazis, okay? And they did it in the face of the people. And if you don't even have enough respect for yourself and your office and your oath, you took an oath to the United States, and you're facilitating human smuggling. I mean, there's no way around it. That's what's happening here. And those people, they're being given dates that are 10 years out. I mean, this is ridiculous. So I feel this is the tragedy in the end, that the left creates all these situations, and you're going to have a Bubba effect. Black people in America are starting to complain about, and this is happening in Chicago. This isn't me just throwing it out there. They're literally saying, hey, us first. Us first. And that is just that's gonna slingshot into the Bubba effect. So
it's an interesting, Title 42 and Gate 42. I saw a lot of coverage of that during the end of Title 42. An NBC News article that I came up just when searching Gate 42 was starting out. Cheers and applause broke out as migrants prepared to cross the border Friday into El Paso hours after pandemic-era restrictions were lifted, and mentioning again Gate 42 among other things. So there was 300 to 400 that have been waiting on the Mexican side of the border wall near Gate 42 in Ciudad Juarez, according to a Customs and Border Protection official, and that New York in that NBC News article. So, there's going to be more postmortem about this, but I do completely agree that the situation isn't over. I've seen the picture I think you're talking about in McAllen. It was attributed to El Paso by at least one person I've seen, but it's way too green. It could not be El Paso. There's still being huge camps, of there being huge amounts of people kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, or maybe we're waiting for the other shoe to drop on what comes next, because I still feel if you're not doing something about it, it's not a solution being presented. We're just kind of kicking the can down the road or waiting for people to become truly desperate, neither of which is a good solution there. So we'll have to leave it there for today because we're out of time. We're super out of time here for this show. I do appreciate all the people that tuned in, called in, commented, participated in the show. We'll have to do it again tomorrow, as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. Some of the stuff we're working on for you, including more on the Texas legislature, particularly on school safety efforts, because that's been kind of under the radar, but that and a whole lot more. So till the next time, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. The mother of a 3-year-old who drowned at an El Paso City water park over the weekend is criticizing the city. KFOX 14 spoke to Jessica Weaver, the mother of the 3-year-old boy. The child.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A crash on the 54 Patriot northbound before Kenworthy has traffic backed up to Trans Mountain. A couple of vehicles up on the left shoulder. I-10 westbound, a crash at Reynolds earlier, still blocking 2 right lanes and causing a 15-minute backup. I-10 westbound from the Loop over to the Patriot, and stop traffic on Global Reach southbound from the Spur to Montana. 18-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Bank of America. Bank of America has powerful digital solutions for local and global businesses, so you can make every move matter. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. Bank of America, N.A. Copyright 2023.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. I have a huge announcement. Thank you for making us #1 in total sales this year. To stay #1, we're offering the biggest savings ever. Hey, Jojo, tell everyone about our exciting offers.
You got it, boss man. Get huge savings on the biggest selection of new and certified pre-owned vehicles in El Paso and surrounding areas at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Right now, get 10% off MSRP on all 2023 Ram 1500 Laramie trucks in stock. Get $5,500 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport. Get super low 2.9% APR for 72 months or $5,250 cash allowance on 2023 Ram 1500 Low Star trucks. Plus, don't worry about your trade or credit. Our aggressive lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect. It's the season of huge savings at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive, or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus TTNL. 2.9% APR is $1,550 per thousand finance. All select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Attend the Las Cruces Gun Show this weekend, May 20th through the 21st at the Las Cruces Convention Center, 680 East University Avenue, Las Cruces, New Mexico. See dealers selling the finest and modern guns, custom knives, scopes, huge selection of ammo, and much more. Buy, sell, and trade at the Las Cruces